Hey guys, we have some really interesting information on COVID-19 right now that I want to share with you. A sampling of different news items, a cornucopia, if you will, of COVID-19 related news items that you should know about, inspired by you. In fact, Candace, you were asking me, what does COVID-19 really look like in America right now? And the truth is, that is a tough question to answer because there are so many different variables and data points. For the purpose of our conversation today, I'm just going to focus on positivity rates. So these are the number of tests that are coming back as positive, and it's an indicator about at times how widespread the virus is in different communities. Positivity rates can drastically change depending on where you are, but overall in America right now, we continue to see positivity rates decline. We're hovering around 7%. The World Health Organization says in general for communities, you want to see that positivity rate closer to 5%. So we're not there yet, but overall as a nation, that's what the picture looks like. There's a little bit of a warning about these positivity rates though. Remember this, if two people walk into a lab and one tests positive and the second one doesn't, you have a 50% positivity rate, which is really, really high, but you know you're only testing two people. If you test 10 people and one tests positive, then that positivity rate is around 10%. So you can see how it fluctuates depending on your sample size. And we want a big enough sample size so we know that we're catching enough cases. The thing is, you can throw this off your testing data depending on how aggressively or proactively you're testing. So if you're testing huge prison systems, for example, or nursing homes, you're proactively going out and administering tests. That can change the data somewhat. And in some states like Texas, there is a concern that we're not seeing testing rates at where we want to see them. It's not unique to Texas, it's a couple other places in the country as well. And health officials don't really know the reason why. Suddenly, we're not seeing the long lines anymore. And you could say, well, Jenna, that's great news because we're not seeing a bunch of people needing to get tested. And that could 100% be the case. It could also be that we've had some really bad weather. People haven't wanted to go out and get tested because they saw that the lines were really long and that there were really big testing delays. And then that can be discouraging and that can be a factor because we want to test as many people that need the test and we want a wide swath of the community to know that we're testing enough to get an idea of what COVID-19 really looks like. Positivity rates and increasing positivity rates are one of the reasons we're seeing some major universities suddenly decide that they're just going to go online instead of doing the in-campus, in-person learning. Notre Dame just announced that this week. And the reason is that they're seeing positivity rates increase, which could be a sign of spread. Now, on this, you think, well, okay, there's going to be some spread at campuses. We knew that. But you have to remember, we're not just looking at COVID as we're going into the fall months. We're looking at the flu. And if you're new to Smarter News, you may not know that we actually covered the flu really aggressively last year because it was a very unique flu season. Influenza B, which is the strain of the flu, arrived early, and it's important to note that because it really affects young people, specifically young people in their 20s. Although we know this was a really historic past flu season for pediatric severity of cases, one of the most severe seasons we saw 2019, 2020 for young children in America in the past 15 years. So in these college campuses that are having young adults, they have to also think about the flu. And how we're going to test for COVID-19 and the flu and have an understanding of how to manage both is going to be a challenge. During a recent hearing, the FDA officials talked about, and the health officials, part of the COVID-19 task force, talked about a single swab that would allow you to test for both the flu and COVID-19. I'm going to follow up on that today to find out exactly where we're at on that. In the meantime, what we're seeing some colleges and universities move suddenly to online learning. And by the way, nearly half of all higher learning facilities or universities in the country are now online or hybrid in some way. We're seeing in the LA school district something very unique and notable. So the LA school district is shut down, it's all online right now. But a new plan just came out to test and trace all of the students and faculty. We're talking about 700,000 students, one of the biggest school districts in America. How are they going to do it exactly? We don't know. We do know that this is going to be a collaboration of some sort between UCLA and Stanford and Johns Hopkins. How exactly they're going to fund it, we also don't know that. The estimates are it's going to be around $150 million. So that's not something that every school district can do, but it's something to watch how a school district is trying to approach getting back to the position where they can reopen. By the way, positivity rates are so high in the area right now that this is likely not something that they're attempting in the immediate, but they're trying to work up a plan. I think you should know that that's happening. Right now, when we think about testing, what do you think about? You think about that big swab going up your nose, right? I do, because I've been there, done that, got a negative result. Not the most enjoyable thing that I've ever done in my life, but you can totally do it, so don't be discouraged by that. But something exciting did just happen. The FDA issued an emergency use authorization for a new COVID-19 test, a saliva test, a unique COVID-19 saliva test, because there are others. The FDA actually has issued this authorization to 5 other different saliva tests. This test out of Yale is different because you don't need to have a particular tube or a particular reagent or even particular machinery to actually go through the test. As long as you use a sterile container, you can collect your own saliva and apparently submit it. How exactly it all works, I'm not completely sure, but the NBA has been using this test to try to figure out how to aggressively test their players so they can continue to play. Results are in a couple hours, not necessarily a couple days, but it's going to depend. And how exactly this test gets to the general public, how much it costs, is also an unknown. But this is exciting because right now, of course, for the flu, you're able to get a rapid test. We're not in the middle of a flu pandemic, but if you needed to go get a flu test and get results in 15 minutes, you can do it. And it's really critical for you to know that because it keeps you home when maybe you're not sure, is this the cold or the flu? So we need something like this for COVID-19. It can be very useful. It's not going to be a panacea where we can just all have saliva tests and go back to normal life, but it might give us the opportunity to test students more aggressively, sport teams more aggressively, quicker, and catch some asymptomatic cases potentially that could spread to others. I'm thinking selfishly of my family in California I haven't been able to see. I have a lot of little kids, snotty-nosed little kids running around. I can't necessarily bring them around my parents. But if we had a saliva test and I needed to fly there, maybe we could. This is what I really wanted to make sure that we share. I know there's a lot of partisan news. Hey, we're in the middle of getting really into the election, and COVID-19 is really emotional. It's also very exhausting, if maybe I'm speaking personally. But we need to know that there's some exciting planning being done and some exciting new treatments, therapeutics, testing that are being developed by very creative, smart people that hopefully will make the next challenging time a little bit easier and hopefully will help us navigate the next several months. So that's happening. That's kind of on the horizon, this type of testing. We're seeing more momentum moving that direction, and I'll be on the lookout for any new things that you should know about as well. In the meantime, questions and comments, let me know. And as always, more on smarternews.com, where you can read all about this if you'd like to see our different sources, different articles, and just are kind of interested in checking out a couple other stories. Have a great day, guys. I'll talk to you later.